before the swearing in.
The day after the swearing in?
Day before.
Oh, no.
Nice.
I wasn't feeling exactly super.
You were swearing,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yes,
I was.
Oh, I got a little iffy on that one. Sorry.
And that's, I got Kathy sick, now she's gone.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So you brought it in?
Oh, I just spread it right
No,
through.
take it down.
Oh,
Leave your mark on your family.
that's right.
Well, maybe we can get
Black
started.
clay.
Okay. Well, first of all, welcome everyone to our meeting, fall meeting of the Community Grants Committee. Would like to start out by congratulating one of our members on his electoral win, and to say that it's too bad because you probably won't be part of this committee anymore, Gary.
We'll see how it rolls.
Were you
but
checking us in? Oh.
Yeah, I don't know, we're gonna have to see. I just, on that point, just as I was going through this, I started looking at it from a different perspective.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's probably not helping.
So anyway, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we have in front of us an agenda, and we have, are there any late items?
The only extra item I don't think on here is to add a discussion item about the timing of the 2019 grant cycle.
Okay, so if we want to put that 4.2 under new business.
It's nice to see everybody.
Okay, any further items, additions to the agenda? Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Thank you, Catherine, seconded Donna. All those in favor? Motion carried. Minutes of our May 4th, oh gosh, that seems like a long time.
Yes, it
doesn't
does. A lifetime.
One time.
So we have our May 4th meeting when we approved the spring grants. Were there any errors, omissions in the minutes? All right, could I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Gary, seconded by Andrea. Those in favor? Just Carrie, thank you. Okay, moving on to public comments. All right, I think we can go rapidly ahead, and as we have no public. So to review the applications, we have 4 applications for a grant and aid this fall, and everyone has had a chance to review them. And we have
Diverse views. No, thanks.
Can I interject at this time
Yes.
with comments from Yvonne, who is not here today? She has left a note with regards to the Light Up Bowen. It's unscored at this time, so I'm not sure how we want to treat that within the average score possible, whether we're going to treat that as a 0 or whether we take that
What
out.
were comments regarding that?
So let me read her note. Bear with me here. I am struggling and unable to score this request, in part because the budget difference from 2016 to 2018 is approximately $10,000, and also the vast range in request. I believe some sponsorship is warranted, and I would agree to $500, but without greater clarity, I cannot support more. As an example, there are 2 fees associated with the ask totaling $1,400. As I'm not sure what that says.
Concerns?
As someone who puts on events, I recognize the time cost associated in doing something of this nature, but there is no sustainability plan for this line item or others, and based on such, I cannot move forward.
So what I would suggest that we allocate a 0 for that and then just average.
Okay.
That would be
That sounds agreeable to
what,
me.
Donna and Andrea, are you?
Okay.
Okay.
That is the scores then.
So what we have traditionally done is gone by, what did we start at the lowest and discuss the lowest scores and moved up. Is that not the way my memory is correct?
Sure.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it looks like the at the average, it looks like the ILU strata is 19. So you want to start with that.
Well, I guess I had some difficulty with it, because it is a private enterprise. And although they said, they mentioned how many people were using it, when you read through, at one point they said it's free access for the parking and the stairs for all the guests, visitors. So when I read, when you were saying how difficult, could we get some kind of statement from them to say that they would honor all people using it for the community? It doesn't sound like we can get that easily, so I don't see this as a community enterprise.
I did have a brief conversation with our manager of planning and development, just to request what the process would be to get that kind of covenant or easement or just even a letter of guarantee, and he said that it would probably be quite costly to do that. So I'm not sure if that's something that we would want to pursue.
Gary.
Yeah, obviously, we're looking after the public purse here, and I don't consider this to be, because of the situation it is, I don't consider it to be public amenity. It can't be guaranteed to be a public amenity. Having said that, the fall grant is a project-based grant. And this is a project that they're doing, and which is going to benefit the neighborhood, perhaps, and maybe the public at large for a long period of time. So that's where I struggled with a bit. And there was one question there, and I don't know, Cheryl, if you could answer. It said number 5 that we applied for a community grant last year.
Yeah, so I asked, they didn't apply for a community grant. But
Okay, all right.
We
I didn't
look
think that. I
after.
didn't think they did.
They had applied for an innovation grant, which is
Oh.
something that I have not been involved in.
I see.
Yeah.
I wondered about that.
Oh, yeah.
Which grant are we talking about?
ILU.
Oh, I
Crayola
beg your
Beach.
pardon, I was thinking Birch. Okay.
No, sorry, this is
Okay.
about the,
Okay.
so, they had applied for an innovation grant. I believe their original grant application was for about $2,400, which far exceeded the $500 amount, which was the maximum for the innovation grant. And I think for the same reasons that people are expressing here, they weren't going to do things.
I was one of the, I suspect with Yvonne, I scored this relatively high. I was 27. And although I was wondering about the right grant bucket, I have to say, just as a, from my own, this is an amenity my family's used a million times. Everyone we know has used a million times. I thoroughly am grateful for being able to park there. So I appreciate I'm coming at it from that perspective, but I do think access to Crayola Beach is a Bowen. It's something that many Boweners rely upon, and so supporting this project would be great. Now, I appreciate that it's not necessarily without a guarantee of access. It does make it difficult. I get that.
There is access to Crayola Beach from the end of Windjammer, which is the trail access that
Yeah.
the municipality and the Parks and Public Works Department take care of. And when I looked at the map, it looks like the trail from Isle Lane actually connects to
It does.
that trail.
It does.
So it's kind of like a little shortcut or
Parking. It's parking on
It's
a hot summer
parking.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have to commend the Strata Corporation for doing this.
it's a great project.
My hesitation is that Strata corporations, without an agreement with the municipality to guarantee public access, the Strata Corporation can change tomorrow. People sell their houses and move, and someone will say, I don't want all of
It's a
those
great
cars
point, Jen.
parking in front of
Yeah.
my house, and we'll put up a gate, and they do have that right. It is private property.
And they wouldn't likely give that right up for $500. I would
That's-
suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, So that was my only problem.
Mhm.
You know, I agree with you, Andrea, it's marvelous to have that ability to park there and to, you know, have safe
Access,
steps.
yeah.
But I just, getting back to your point, Gary, it's the public purse, and it is enhancing private property without a guarantee that
Mm.
it's,
But this-
Unfortunately.
but this-
If there was some way we could make it work,
yeah.
Squish
I'd
it.
love to give them the $500, because
Squish it.
they've spent a lot of money.
Yeah, they have,
Yeah.
and time.
And of their own money and time. There's been a lot, incredible amount of labor. $500, you know, it's not the
Yeah,
end
it's
of the
not
world.
big
It's,
ask.
it's more about the principle of the thing. But if, you know, if somebody could think of an idea about how we can make this work to be able to give them the money to carry on and do what they have to do, but make sure that we're not setting precedent.
Would it fit within the neighborhood grants project?
Is that
That's the
the
innovation.
Oh, that was the innovation
Yeah.
grant.
Oh, that's what it was.
And they were turned down for that.
And
as well.
that grant stream is not continuing,
Oh, it's
Mm.
not?
no.
Okay. So it's, in effect, this application's ineligible. We're saying they're not eligible as opposed to not meet, you know,
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounded like.
If I'm right.
Ineligible because of the rules of the strata. It was kind of from the information that came out from
Yes, except
From the
when
email.
I read through the policy,
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything in the policy that actually indicated that we couldn't give to private.
to a
No,
private.
I think we can give
Yeah.
them the money.
I see. I just wanted to be clear.
I don't think there's anything that stops us giving them the money, but I think it's more of the precedent going forward. Like I said, if we could qualify it somehow, I don't know how we would do that. But you know, this is project-based, and we do give money to projects that are finished, that finish, and we have no track of what happens to them afterwards.
Afterward.
They could rot out in the woods, or they could do whatever. So I don't, the longevity is something we could sort of skirt around. I don't know. I'd like to give them the money, but I think it's, I'm having a hard problem figuring out a way to do it.
Did we grant $500 to Bihora at some point for repairing their
We did,
fences?
we've done it before, haven't we?
Which is
Yeah.
exactly the same thing, really.
Is it?
Well,
It's not, that's the community,
could be.
that's part of Crippen Park, it isn't the.
Oh, is it? Okay,
I-
okay, but as long as it wasn't on their private property, I guess that would be the, I don't know.
But
what
it's
it
on
was.
Crippen, it's on Metro Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so-
I'm looking at the application again for a glimmer of commitment, you know?
Yes, yes.
Because maybe you can read some commitment into it.
Mhm.
But even if you read commitment into it, it would have to be, you know, legal.
I know, I know. Oh, the law, what a pain in the pit, she says as a lawyer.
Too bad we're not a bunch of lawyers sitting around the table and finish this in no time.
Well, and I guess part of the problem is that, and I say thank you to the ILU group, because I think it's really nice that they're willing to allow people to cross over their property. But I think, Gary, your comment and the use of the word precedent, because we have a lot of strata corporations on the island, and, you know, what's to stop, you know, another
Yeah.
group saying, oh,
Yeah.
we're going to do this, we'll let the public, you know, use it, and then 2 years later say, no, we don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm just too,
I
You know,
think
maybe if they, you know, a sign doesn't mean anything, but I'm saying maybe if they put up, do they have a sign that says public access?
No,
the road does,
the road,
it says private road,
yeah.
Bellevue Lane. It says
But there's nothing at the top of their trail down to Crayola, no.
No, the
but
whole
if,
road
if
is.
the road says
You
private
have to know.
access, you're trespassing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, are you? Yeah,
Yeah,
of course you
you
are,
are.
of course you are. Okay,
Okay, so should we, did Yvonne have any comments on that?
She supported their full ask.
Okay.
That's the only other comments that she made was the financial recommendation.
Okay, so any other final comments on the ILD strata? Our next one is Birch, which which is the Housing Corporation.
It's too bad that Robin isn't here today, that would have been very handy.
Actually, I don't think that we are asking questions.
That's right.
No.
So,
It would be too tempting to have her here.
No, we're not asking.
We're not gonna do it anymore.
That's when I'm supposed to capture all those questions in advance.
Oh, okay, well, you've done a marvelous job.
Except there's some other questions.
I got it, well,
I'll just jump in right now. I really, commend them for the work that they're doing. I understand that they've got a commitment from the municipality to help with the building to, I guess, is it lot 3 that they're.
Correct.
My major concern with this was what they were asking funding for. And I actually went on the OCP and number, it was 150 in the OCP is to promote volunteerism. This, the whole proposal, they're asking to pay for people who, in our community have always been volunteers to do a lot of the work. And I struggled with that a lot.
I did too. That I actually wrote a couple of thoughts down on that. I wasn't sure whether this was an organization that was going to be around for a long time with a rotating board of directors. In essence, Robin at this point is the chair. And, like so many organizations on the island, it's a volunteer role. And so what would stop any other organization asking for funding to put on some meetings and, that was.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in because I have a really different view on that. I think one of the issues we faced for a long time on Bowen is getting committed volunteers for important projects. And as somebody who can't afford to volunteer anywhere near as I did when my son was home and I was working part-time, I hesitated at first too, but what you're looking at is a very professional facilitator, committed, who's probably put in tons of volunteer hours already, charging essentially $150 to run a 3-hour meeting, which is a very low fee. And I'm okay with saying certain critical parts of a not-for-profit group's work, that there is scope to have what's in effect an honorarium from my perspective. Although I know that, and it's for a finite period of about 2 years. It's not an ongoing,
It's not going
right?
to be that makes a difference for sure.
So I did debate that too, but I'm concerned that there's a rock star group involved with this, really talented people.
Absolutely.
They're not all asking for it, and I think it's really important, although arguably the fee should be for 1 year, if I understand how we grant. Right? We could pay for 1 year of meetings, not 2. So for that reason, I'd be in favor of it.
Gary?
Okay, so like Andrea alluded to, that this is a rockstar group, this Birch operation, and they're all volunteers for us. They are getting some funding, I guess, through some grants. I think we gave them some years. So my question here, so that obviously would be a subcommittee of Birch, and I think that the key here is, as members of, in number 7 in the project description, as members of the BC NPHA, BC Nonprofit Housing Association, we are following best practice of forming a community-based group of stakeholders to review and inform the project as it proceeds. So this is part of the deal from BC Housing, or whoever it is, BC Nonprofit Housing, which is aligned with BC Housing, which is where they're going to get their funding. So they said, what we recommend is you have a community-based group of people that sort of drive the direction you're going with the housing, the requirements for the housing, rates for the housing and all that stuff, as described here. So this is where they're going with this, is that they require this group. I have a little problem with them calling it a project advisory committee, because I don't think it should be an advisory committee. It should be a community input committee, or that. If you look at the people that are gonna be put into that group, which is fair, and I think it's a great idea, because we have to have that transparency and we have to have that community involvement in a process like this. So, I think it's essential for them going forward. I would like to have seen terms of reference.
There are some in a way, I think, Gary, if you look at paragraph 11, under evaluation, they list the kinds of outcomes, and to me, that's exactly what the group will be looking at. That feels like a one-off thing. So the criteria for how people are going to be selected, et cetera. And then ultimately set up a tenants committee that would, I assume, replace this committee, would be the permanent creation. But I could be wrong about that. So this is a kind of as you say, an input and setup group, yeah.
So, does Birch right now have a board of directors, or is?
Huge, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean
Who
by
are
huge,
they?
Gary? Can you elaborate on that?
I think there's, well, can somebody bring it up
I
online?
think there's 6, they've got a good
There's
website.
6, and they're extremely high power bunch of people.
It's,
Very talented.
Can I just, as a note to
I think
future
David
reference,
McCollum might be.
I would
Yes.
I think it would be really helpful for the committee in the future to actually have the board of directors
I agree,
listed.
I wrote that down too.
I did go online and onto their website and did find their
Yeah. I never
board of
thought
directors,
about
but
it, yeah.
maybe just in the future.
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Justin
Because I
Tudor
thought
was on?
we used to have, we had one on the previous
We did,
application.
yeah.
This one,
Yeah.
I think we revised it a little bit, but.
It's my fault. I would have dropped that
Well,
inadvertently.
I think that for, item number 10, where it says volunteer for the project, I think that would have been a spot maybe
Yeah.
where you would itemize
Yeah.
the other board members and the people who are involved
Yeah.
with this.
So we just say, if you have a board, please list its members. That's all.
Exactly.
It would be great.
Because unfortunately, part of the problem I have with this is that it reads as one person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
And
why-
I did not know this person at all.
Mhm.
So I'm just reading this as one person going through and wanting this money for him to do work.
So it is, David's the chair, okay.
Yeah.
So there's David McCollum.
Oh, Aaron, uh-huh.
Yeah.
I know her name.
Jim Wade.
Anita's a lawyer,
Marina's,
a practicing lawyer. And then this is Robin, who's
Yeah.
the legwork person.
So I think what they're doing is driving Birch towards a housing commission style of, and this is coming from the other side now. They're driving this towards a housing commission, which I always said we don't know anything, but that isn't part of this deal. The other problem, which I think is valid, I think they're rounding out the deal, and I think they have to go there to sort of finish up where they're going on this whole thing. I think this is a big part of it. The other thing is, we do have a housing advisory committee through the Muni, which has almost the same mandate. I mean, I just pulled up the terms of reference for that. And it says, provide council with advice and recommendations on housing issues to help improve the quality of life, livability, and working environment of the residents, visitors, businesses, Bowen Island. Provide advice and recommendations to council wide range of existing emergency housing issues. So there's a little bit of duplication in there.
I just point out that Robin is the chair of the Housing Advisory Committee.
Correct. So, I don't know how to look at this, and that's why I was hoping Ron would be here. Because they're gonna duplicate a lot of this on the committee, and maybe that's, change that, but I guess if we get back to the essence of the grant, which is what we're here for. Yeah, I would like a little bit more information.
And Catherine, any?
No, I'm,
When they talk about the financials, I guess it would have been helpful, even though it's just really started, that they had 5,000. It would have been more helpful, I think, for me, if, how do they spend the 5,000?
she mentions a couple of things.
That's
but
right,
It's
she
not
does
really
mention-
done in a
Yeah.
budget form.
I believe there's a multi-year core funding application also has been received from Birch.
Mm.
So that will be on a council agenda sometime in the next couple of months.
Mhm. So is the idea that some of the information that comes out of this project will be evolved into the housing, the municipal housing group? Or
Yeah.
if she's the chair of
So-
that as well?
It's funding a facilitator for a consultative project that will have output.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which in that case, the funding would come out of the budget
Mhm.
as opposed to come out of the community.
Right,
grants.
yeah.
That's the other thing. So I don't know how those two are gonna sort of mesh,
Mhm.
which brings me back to the point of should we be actually starting up this committee without further discussion? I mean, and they can do whatever they want, they can start up the committee, but I don't know if it's logical at this point in time.
In what do you mean in terms of the?
Well, all they're doing is starting up another committee, which we're gonna pay for out of a grant that we already have a committee to do, that we're funding out of, could be funding out of our budget.
So you're saying that the housing committee could be duplicating what they're doing here,
Yes,
as opposed to?
yeah, which, who knows how that, this might end up going ahead, and the housing advisory committee might end up,
Isn't this work specific to this project though? Not the whole,
You want three?
yeah, the Lot 3 project? Okay.
Birch happens to be dealing with the Lot 3 project, but they can look at any piece of community lands we have.
But the application relates to the Lot 3 project, I think, right?
Yeah.
It says,
It says
On
the
lot
cost
three.
of community
No,
engagement
I
portion.
the project name, Snug Cove Affordable Rental Project on Lot 3 of the community lands.
Right.
But it would have to exist for this committee that they're forming would have to exist for any piece of property that they were using. I don't think, they're not gonna disband it after this Lot 3 gets done. Anyway, that's it.
Wouldn't they form one for each project? I don't know.
I don't think so, because it's common, it's just housing. But I think it would be common throughout the sector.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's why, I don't know,
Well,
a lot of questions.
it sounds to me like they've got, it's a given that we need housing on the island.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And what they would gather from this for Lot 3 would probably be transferable to many of the other projects that are happening.
Which they've said in paragraph 8.
Yes,
Specifically.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just reading that.
Acknowledging that this work would have flow-on benefits.
Mhm.
So does anyone have, I guess, Andrea, getting back to the comments that you made at the beginning, and just wondering if anyone else is concerned about, are we setting a precedent in starting to fund what has traditionally been volunteerism on the island? And should I sort of change my thinking and start to look in the 21st century as opposed to that where, and we are very busy, and is
Or
this?
maybe we are, truly, maybe we are built on, we've got a boomer resource that we can all benefit from, but maybe we need to be more explicit about that, because it's really hard for
Yeah.
people still at work to contribute in this way. But I admit that's my perspective, yeah.
Is there a difference between, if there's a volunteer group and they decide to bring in expertise to help them move forward or whatever? So I'm going to hire Jane, and Jane is a professional and she charges $100 an hour, but she's going to charge us $50. So I'm going to put this down, we're asking for $50 so Jane can come in. Is it different asking for someone outside your organization to come in as opposed to hiring within
your volunteer organization?
Ultimately, I think municipalities are gonna end up paying for this committee anyway. Whether they do it through the community grants or whether there's a special application, if they set up some kind of commission in some terms of reference, then, you know, we're gonna pay for it anyway. So, is this a precursor to it? Maybe, but we don't really have any real solid terms of reference or that sort of thing, or how the whole cooperation thing is gonna work, so, I don't know.
I guess I'm wondering, is this going to have an impact? You know, I think back to when, for example, the Knickknack Nook was set up, which was all volunteer, people just got together in someone's house and started to talk about what should be done. And over the years, volunteers have moved a lot of things forward on the island. I look at the budget where you've got, you know, they're asking for money to do minutes of a meeting, and they're asking for money for refreshments and room rental. And am I being too picky and worrying that that's going to start, people are going to start saying, well, I'm not going to do this unless I get paid for it.
That's a good
And
one.
that's what worries me, and it might be, maybe this could be, the reason why we're not getting a lot of grants is there too much volunteer burnout? Are people too busy and they just can't afford to? Or does money even enter into it? People are just too busy.
I agree.
It's just
A
this.
bit of a slippery slope, isn't it?
Well, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with this grant, if the request is for an organization that might just be around for 2 or 3 years while they're setting it up and then turn it over to a tenancy committee, I don't have as much problem paying, like for somebody like Robin, who is also the chair, but a professional. So, I mean, I'm easier giving the money to fund that as opposed to somebody, use the Community School Association for an example, where you have a chair in an organization that's been around for 25 years, where all of a sudden, you know, it's a tricky thing
It is
when
tricky.
you start, you know.
It would have been
Funding.
great to have some explanation about why this particular ask. You know, it may be, Robin may have a particular reason, or they looked at an external facilitator and couldn't afford it, and, you know, whatever, I don't know, but it is
Yeah.
tricky. I appreciate it. I just want to acknowledge that it's, you know, so much is being asked. There is a lot of volunteer burnout, and we all wonder why.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I'm here
There
to
is
say that every
component.
$250 honorarium I get for things around the
Yeah.
island is much needed and helps to justify the small personal time. Yeah.
And especially when it's something that is going to move particular projects forward,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I believe in Birch, I believe in Robin, she's
Mhm.
incredibly hard work. And they're committed to an incredibly valuable service in our community. And as far as I can see, they're still volunteers.
Mhm.
This is looking for a project over a 2-year period. We could look at it as a 1-year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that'd be
Yeah.
really sensible,
Yeah.
and just see how it goes. Because after 1 year, maybe we're gonna wind all this stuff in, you know, and form
The
some kind of
parameters
commission or
might
something like
change,
that.
yeah.
And take our housing advisory and put that in there and
Well,
the
there
whole
is the
thing.
multi-year core funding application that is in play right now.
Mhm.
Also, within number 7, you know, again, what you said, Gary, it sounds like where it says we are following the best practice of forming a community-based group of stakeholders to review and inform the project as it proceeds. So, you know, it's almost like just following the steps of the
Yes.
thing to do.
Yeah,
So this is part of what the next step is.
Mhm.
part of the
Yeah.
process, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
I think it's mandatory, it's just like,
Right.
you know, the community center funding, you gotta do this, and you gotta do this, and you gotta do
Yeah,
this. It's
check
all
all
part
the
of the deal.
boxes
Yeah.
and.
So while we do our grants annually, maybe we could, you know, let's look at it as a one.
But
Mhm.
yeah, I would say that that's a very reasonable idea, it's just, do the 1 year,
Yeah.
which is theoretically what they're asking for, and just say, well, let's see how this rolls.
So 1,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. because I really like the
Because we don't know
board
what's
of
going on.
directors is great, and
Yep.
I like the whole organization and what
Yeah.
they're doing.
And I think there'll be some changes in the year with the new year.
Mhm.
We won't be looking at this sort of thing next year. It'll be a totally different operation.
New council.
Yeah, new council, new day.
Yeah.
New day.
Okay, so we'd be
We
looking
wish.
at changing, looking at the timing that they're asking in terms of their 2,000 and cutting it down to 1,000 for
Yes.
1 year. Is that what I'm
Sure.
hearing from the
Mhm.
committee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other? But it, I mean, what we've talked about does raise, there are philosophical issues, I totally get it. I don't mean to brush by those at all, at all. Yeah.
I think we're all mindful of that. It is, it's really tricky.
You could take it
Taking
even
it out.
further, like businesses, the number of time businesses have been asked for freebies.
Mhm.
You know, it's the same thing with professionals asked for freebies.
It's true.
It all goes into.
It's professional development, I guess, isn't it, really?
To a point, yeah.
Mhm.
To a point.
But then on the other hand, it is, I think you have to take a look at the whole essence of volunteerism. If you feel strongly about something, then you're prepared to give your time. And so that's, so, good. We good about it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so that takes us to
Light up Owen. Light up Owen.
Right up.
There was a lot of email correspondence. So
Thank you, if I could just interject for half a second.
Thank you very much for all of the labor that you've done, Michelle.
Indeed. I did just draw a line at the end. I was like, okay, I could keep on going,
Yeah.
but I'm just stopping now.
Took a lot of notes for us.
And again, it was great to have the email
Thread.
feedback going back and forth.
I just want to acknowledge too, I think Basha did quite, for someone who said, I've never done one of these, and I'll have a professional grant
I
writer.
thought you did a.
Her voice really came through in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was lovely.
I don't actually have a copy of the first one.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, yeah.
Just acknowledging you don't have to be a professional grant writer to apply.
Exactly. Okay, who wants to start off the conversation? Do you want to, Cheryl, could you just go through, reread Yvonne's comments in light of,
Sure.
we have the application in front of us now.
Yes, all right. I'm struggling and unable to score this request, in part because the budget difference from 2016 to 2018 is approximately $10,000, and also the vast range in requests. I believe some sponsorship is warranted, and I would agree to $500, but without greater clarity, I cannot support more. As an example, there are 2 fees associated with the ask totaling $1,400. As someone who puts on events, I recognize the time costs associated in doing something of this nature, but there is no sustainability plan for this line item or others, and based on such, I cannot move forward.
So what was the 14, what was the $14?
Yeah.
I think it was referring to the coordinator's fees.
I thought that might be what it was.
Yeah, there's 2 of them there.
Yeah, but that was
That's
1,200.
6 and 8.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
he's
6 and 6 and
6
6.
and
sorry.
6. Yeah.
Eyes.
Yeah. But I feel quite confident that's what she was referring to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just while we were still on that page there, so the expenses are 11,000, almost 11,500, 478. Projected income of 5,500. Who's going to need the 5,900 bucks? Where does
But
that?
I think the 11,000 though comes from if this massive investment is
Yeah.
made in all this,
Yeah.
all these new lights and things. That's
Oh,
what's, right?
okay,
So
that's
there's
projected.
4,700 in the new lights and then North Pole lights and the wood displays.
Oh,
I think they're looking at 2019, they've got a number of 2000.
2018.
No, Santa's Sleigh is a project. What I was focusing on was, on that first page, the lights, which totals 4735. That's what they're
Yes.
hoping to do this year.
Yeah,
No, yeah, okay.
And then the North Pole lights. So that, I mean, I'll be honest and say that's the part I was kind of looking at, because it was a
Yeah.
capital, or, you know, it was a purchase.
I had a couple of question marks, like the event permit from BIM for 100.
Yeah,
And
so,
then I wasn't sure about what the casino night or the food tent revenue meant.
So
Well, it must
I'll
have a
just
food
say-
tent, because they had German sausage.
Yeah, they
or
have
something.
German sausage so that they, yeah.
Did they do that last year?
No, they didn't.
So this is something they're envisioning for this year to happen.
I guess.
That's what my
It seems really
Yeah.
ambitious.
Yeah. What my gut feeling was that they had a group meeting and it was really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah,
See the
kind of a
number
real
people.
brainstorming.
And a lot of brainstorm, wouldn't it be great to do this, let's do this, and so from that energy, this was created.
Yeah.
Knowing it may not all happen now, but this is
Yeah,
this is where they
kind
wanna
of a
go.
dream,
Yeah.
yeah.
as far as the permit fee from BIM, I believe the permit fee for, is a parade holding an event, is actually waived, and I think the maximum fee would be $25.
And so, that's okay, you don't have your
Yeah.
budget all completely nailed. I just had a question around that. And then I put a couple of question marks around the storage of $600 at the marina, and then the two
Yeah, that one.
coordinator fees, again, because of the volunteerism
Yeah.
component.
Well, the coordinators have been paid over the last
Yes, I see that, yeah.
2 or 3 years, so it's,
It probably works out to about $5 an hour.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, knowing Basha and Jewel.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's a really a nice event
it,
for the community.
it's a good, I love it.
I don't know why it's being done privately. I don't know why the media isn't kicking in some money for this deal.
That's what they're asking
Like for lights'
Yeah.
sake.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the lights are a capital expense that have a time limit on them. The lights are gonna be good for maybe 3 years, 5 years.
Not if they're LED,
Huh?
not if they're LED.
Well, yeah, you're right, that's true.
They
That
do
makes a
serve
big
properly.
difference, yeah.
And, I kind of like the idea of the wooden structures and leaving
Yeah.
it lit
Yeah,
up
yeah.
for, for a year one, that component of, for the lighting and the wooden structures. And I get, they have to store this stuff somewhere.
They're also gonna pay somebody to make these things, which is.
Yeah. Well, that'll, I'm assuming, be Paul.
Yeah, it'll be Paul and with
With some, yeah.
free labor.
Yeah. for-
Knowing these
like-
guys,
Yeah.
it would be great.
Yes.
So the question is, it seems that there seems to be general consensus that it's a really nice community event.
Mhm.
They're asking for,
What, 2 to 5,000?
They actually asked for between 2,000 to 5,000.
right,
I put 2,000 in because that's traditionally what we've done for a fall grant to May is maximum, but our policy actually doesn't indicate that. It just says typically.
Yeah.
And let's have a look at do they have the budget cost for what some of the,
I think it's really, one of the really positive things is that they've got a group of people who are willing to work with
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Like crazy. Look at that volunteer list.
Yeah.
Amazing.
yeah.
So my feeling is that in spite of the fact that there's, the application is rather general in nature in terms of what they want the funding for, if there's some way that we could look at supporting them to encourage the continuity,
Continuation, yeah.
continuation of it. and supporting the volunteers that seem to have stepped forward.
And they're looking to breathe, I think they're looking to breathe new life
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
it,
And,
yeah.
Yeah, sure, that's a good point.
they needed a committee. It
I
needed to.
know, I can't
be
believe that
so,
didn't exist.
They've existed as long as it has, just with Bosch and
Well,
Julie.
and
Now
I
they've
wondered,
got that committee.
did they try in the past to get a committee, or they just took it on?
I just think they took it on
It's just
and
grown
started,
and grown
you
and
know.
grown.
Yeah.
It really has grown.
Are we in a position to direct where the grant, I mean, could we look at a grant for lights, for this lights project in particular? Or is it up to them to
What
decide?
we have done in the past with a couple of other organizations, I think ProFest, I think Steamship Days, where we have said we can provide grant funds up to a certain amount of money, just bring us the invoice. Bring the invoice to the municipality and we'll pay it on your behalf.
Yeah. So, like, I would support the lights and, you know, like
The
you talked about,
displays.
our Santa sleigh downward, and that's 4,700.
I think it's 4735 plus 335 is the whole lights project.
Yeah.
but- Seven.
So now, they talk about the lights, I guess part of it is the path down. Do they actually, do people walk down from Artisan
Yes.
Square?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down
Yeah.
that path, so that
It's
to me,
Rather than
it's
the road.
safety, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be beautiful.
But I think last year they actually started from, is it called Village Square now?
Yeah, yeah.
I think they didn't come
They didn't.
from.
I
Oh,
wondered if
last
they
year.
had changed that.
Yeah.
It's a long,
That's a long and
it's a
dark
long
drive.
way, yeah.
It's a lot of lights.
So,
A lot of
when we give
Yeah.
when do these grants get given? Like we-
Once a recommendation is made, I just need to write up with Steph, and I need to write up the minutes and report, and it would go to a council meeting probably in 2 meetings. Next meeting is Monday.
The only
Well,
reason
after.
I say is time is ticking, and if they,
Yes.
if
Oh,
they're
yeah, it's
going
early
to-
this year.
It'll, you know, they've basically got not even quite a month
Mhm.
to build.
They might incur the expense knowing if they knew that, yeah.
Yeah, is it likely that the council would reject, I mean, once it's passed here?
I don't know.
It would be terribly grinchy.
I'm
Very
just
cringy.
wondering, you know, if you felt it was a positive thing, whether, I mean, it would be nice for them to know a little in advance of 2 meetings from now, because that's almost,
I mean, two.
December 1st is right up the
it-
way.
yeah,
Today's-
December.
It's in
1st.
5
Today's
minutes.
the 5th.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have those hammers and nails
Yeah.
going and lights.
We can try to get it onto the next agenda. It would be up
I-
to the mayor.
It's up to you.
Last grants meeting,
So if I can get the minutes done today.
Done, done.
Okay, so what we've got,
Yeah, we will. It's not a big, it's not a big
Yeah,
meeting.
it's-
We can slip it in, probably put
It's
it
a-
in the
They'll need
consent.
some,
Good
they'll need to
thing.
slow it down.
Yes.
Staff comment.
do we
Just
want,
need
do we
some
want,
issues.
do we want to talk about the amount now and specificity in terms of how this money should be paid? Or do we want to go on to the final and then take a look at, what we've got money,
Yeah.
we're fine in terms
We're
of.
we're certainly seem to be concluding each as we go along, so we might as well continue on
Okay.
that, so we
Yep.
can figure out a number on this.
All right,
I haven't put in any numbers, but I could
No.
put in, I think we agreed on 1,000
Yeah.
for Birch.
Yes,
Yeah,
And was it 0 for Isle View in the
I'm
end?
afraid so.
Okay, so
Okay.
so there's,
So are we putting a figure in now, you think, or? leave
well,
it?
we're just kind of playing around with some figures.
So in case it's not clear, we do have $14,745 available to
Mhm.
award within the grant funds. The total requests were $64.50, which was going to leave a balance of $8,300, approximately $8,300 anyway.
Remind me where that, the excess goes back
So
to
it
general
goes back into surplus, but I thought that I would check with Raj, our CFO, if we could have it earmarked
go into next year.
Yeah, especially with the multi-year core funding grants are also coming out of the same pot of money, and we do have additional grant applications now for that,
Yes.
so.
Could we make a recommendation at the end of this meeting when we finalize the numbers, a motion to go to council to,
That's a
any
good idea.
surplus left over goes into the grants for the next year?
Yes.
Yeah, into a reserve.
Mhm.
Okay, so what are we looking at then in terms of LUBA, like up Bowen? In terms of numbers, it sounds to me from hearing that the idea of maybe giving them a certain amount for lights would be an appropriate expenditure at this point. Anyone want to suggest an amount?
Is that including the lights, is that including the fabricating those? Is that in there too, or not?
Or the wood display?
The wood displays, yeah.
Yeah, I think the lights are their own thing, and they total
Except there's the
40.
candy cane lights that are up
top.
top as part of the Santa
Mhm.
party.
Mm-hmm.
I think, oh, I see.
So you could,
We could suggest a certain amount and allocate, say that this is for purchasing of lights to be used,
The parade path and the orchard.
or just say, do we need to be that specific?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
wondering
I
if we
just-
need to be so
just-
specific.
Just to say lights.
this is for lights and put them
Yeah.
where you will.
Is this an invoice you would like paid from by the municipality, or are we going to just grant funds?
Is that practical for them? If you go to Canadian Tire and go bananas? I don't know. Or wherever you go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I'm
that's a
just,
great
in the past, we've done it that way.
And it's worked okay?
It's been fine.
Have you, when they've done it, have you said they could spend up to a certain amount on this particular item?
Right.
So in the case of lights, we might say you can spend up to this X amount
Well, yeah,
and then
it's kind
submit
of-
the bill? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
And that's kind of nice
Yeah.
because
Buy
we're
online is the way to
supporting
do it.
lights,
Yeah.
you know, not the general projects. so-
Without having to track it, over the course of a year.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think of that too.
Mhm.
If it works for you, Shale.
It
it's
hasn't been a
worth-
problem in the past.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that you would.
It'll
it would
be
a fairly-
probably one person, or possibly two, who are picking up all these lights or
Exactly.
ordering them. And
Okay, so we're looking at lights, how much?
Start at 5. They want 5. Right?
What?
Grand for lights. Right? That's about the gist of the lights ask.
I'd be okay with 5.
Yeah, I would be.
I mean,
It's actually
they've
more
got
than
a
5.
vision and do it. You know, instead of little bits, but it's just like, wow, what an impact. It's,
Now,
What if they
Sorry, I
fold, what if
can't
they
see the
fold their
5,000.
10 next year?
where's the
I don't
5,000?
think they will. I mean, Light Up Bowen has been around for a long, long time.
Oh,
I think it will, but I think it'll breathe new life
so
into
for
it.
lights, there's the
Yeah.
47 and
Oh,
then
got it.
335.
Does it also say within their, I think, number 2, they say that any funds that are left over, they deposit with Tourism Bowen Island. So,
Mhm.
I mean, if they were to fold, which I think someone might have just said, then maybe we say that all lights would then be
Mhm.
donated to Tourism Bowen? who
Yes.
Then maybe the
Yes.
organization that took it over or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
You're clever.
That's very clever.
Can the muni store the lights?
We have no storage.
Okay.
I think they have $600 for storage. I'm feeling 5,000 is a lot of lights.
I know. I just started there.
And I'm looking at their previous budgets, and they totally spent probably about $400 on lights in total. Now that's all that they've listed. So
You know, another aspect of this, if they got the $4,000 worth of lights, they would all have to put out.
That's, now, is that a volunteer job? Because it's somewhere in
Well,
here they
she
alluded
mentioned
to
something
have
about
paying
having,
somebody to do
That's
it.
right,
Yeah.
because that's what I've
That's-
heard, that
and
they
that's-
would like someone to pay. They would like to pay someone to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you, stringing lights, boy,
That's so
yeah,
fun.
that's a lot of lights.
Yeah, it's really not a fun job either. No, like a paint job, but.
I wonder about just giving them a certain amount of money and let them decide if they're going to put up half the lights and pay someone to put those lights up, or, use it on something else.
I actually like the idea of buying the lights and then leaving the rest to the committee, the revived committee to
Yes.
sort out.
yeah. And I like the idea of if the tent folded, having it turned over, get, I don't know, a little more.
It's as a community
Yeah,
asset.
yeah. But,
Or to the CSA and the craft fair. I'm just trying to think of other
Absolutely,
type
yeah.
of events that are.
that could utilize,
Yeah.
that's a really
Bowen
good
party
point.
rental, oh, that's fabulous. Yeah, I'm with you, I have a hard time. coming up with a
3,500?
number.
Well, actually, let's talk about the fact that with our fall grant and aid, we usually don't go over 2,000. I mean, are we breaking tradition? Like, it doesn't say anything in our policy that we have to.
Mhm.
But this, I think, would be the first time that we did in my.
You know, my feeling is that I'd like to say $2,000
Mhm.
and good luck, and I hope that this volunteer group really moves forward with
Yes.
it. So far it's been a two-person operation. I think it's great that they're going forward, that they've got more volunteers. I'd like to encourage them, and $2,000 is a nice grant. It's
Yeah.
bigger than we've given a lot of other organizations.
Mhm.
And
Come back next year and
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Build on it.
$2,000 to use as they want. Yeah.
Yep.
Which is okay. And then next year, really love the light project. Consider requesting a grant again once that's more
Yeah.
formed.
Well, they could also come back to the grants in the spring, big money ones,
Yeah.
and come in there.
Mhm.
By giving them the 2,000, we're saying we're supporting you,
Yes.
and we're trusting you to use the money the best way to light it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd be
Good with that?
So 2,000 without an invoice coming, just
Right.
2,000.
Just a grant.
Okay.
and we'll look forward to reading their final report.
Yeah. Can we ask for more, can we suggest that if they want to proceed on the bigger light project, that more detail next time would be welcomed, or we don't move forward that way? We don't look forward,
Shale always puts in a little bit of a
Yeah.
note on
Yeah.
on
would be welcome with details about,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can
okay.
ask that. It was an application that was received very late,
I know,
so I think there wasn't a lot of time
Mhm.
to
okay.
put.
With it coming in so late, it was actually, I appreciated the grant and the budget, the.
She's a doer,
Good for her.
our Basha.
That's for sure.
Okay, so everyone good with that?
Mhm.
Just as a reference, Joe, where's that $2,000? Where's that even alluded to?
It's not in the policy at all.
Oh,
It's
it is.
actually only on our webpage.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know it's always, in my mind, it's always been 2,000.
yeah, that's what it seems,
Yeah.
project-based stuff.
So that may be a leftover from when we actually had a grants and aid policy before the.
That's right,
grants
before we
policy.
amalgamated.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
It's all become so blurry. There's
And
so-
that's- it's also before my
Some
time,
changes.
so I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think
But,
that-
but it would affect a group like this, whose application is naturally going to come in the fall. So planning in the spring for, it's hard to, I don't know, there might be groups that are, I don't know, I'm wondering why we need to limit
Let's
it.
talk about it at 4.2.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Thank you.
Nice.
Please sit down. You're-
Perfect segue there.
Okay, well, let's,
Team.
let's go to cause. All right. Education Society. We've dealt with cause over the years.
Yeah, and I was surprised that they hadn't submitted an application this
Yeah.
past spring.
I know,
Yeah.
that's
I
why.
think
They
that
did
was
not
because
because
of
Iris
Iris.
died.
Oh, because Iris died.
And I think that she was often the person that was involved with the grant applications, so.
Susanna has,
Yeah, Suzanne.
Stepped
has taken
up,
over
yeah.
that now.
Anyway, getting rid of skunks.
Yes, please.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And I think the education
I
piece,
do
which
too.
is always really high on their agenda, I think is fantastic.
Yes.
On the poisons and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if they can figure out a way, you know, so the skunks stay out of your yard, I guess that's what we really want. Because I don't think we're ever gonna get rid of them.
So what my only comment on this is that I agree with you, Gary, I think it's a great idea, education, giving more information about what to do with the skunks when they start to come. But we did fund them in 2017 to produce a brochure. And the brochure wasn't completed and the money went into feeding the cats. I would like to say that if they don't complete the brochure that they're wanting to do this time, then the funds come back to the municipality, they don't go into the
general
general.
operating.
Can we do it on the basis that Shale suggested, that we'll pay for printing and distribution, or no? Is that too complicated?
Well, I think that's what they're requesting.
No, that
By
they provide
invoice.
invoices, yeah,
Oh, I see, yeah,
But
yeah.
isn't that, if we start that,
you're right.
it's gonna be.
Yeah,
And maybe it partly didn't happen again because of Iris.
Yeah,
I wonder
good point.
if that was
You know?
part of the.
Yeah,
and I think they're a very good organization. Their financials
They're
are always
fantastic,
very,
yeah.
very solid.
Oh, it's a really solid application, I don't know.
Yeah, good volunteers,
Yeah.
lots of them.
and I remember when Jasmine was a little kid, when the owl represented, like, they come to the schools
Oh, yeah.
with
it's
owls, and it's really
Very
pretty cool.
One thing I just wanted to say, I support the application, and, but I'm wondering how close we're getting to a world where paying to produce and send out leaflets is not really gonna, could that money ultimately be better spent adding it to a website somewhere where information's accessible to everyone all the time and not relying on
Yeah.
a leaflet on your fridge? I'm not saying it shouldn't happen now,
Yeah.
but it might be worth noting that groups like this consider sharing information that way, or upgrading their website to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Although there is a portion of the population that
Yeah.
doesn't
No,
use
absolutely.
social media.
Mhm.
And, I'm one of those people that very seldom go on Facebook, for example.
But if the cause website has, you know that it's all on the cause website. When
Yeah,
you're
yes,
looking
there
at
are-
skunk problems.
yeah, there are, so that we're still in that transition, because I agree with you, Andrea.
Yeah.
I think the more we can do
Yeah.
online, the
Mhm.
better, but we also have to be cognizant that there is a part of the population that is not
Tech savvy.
tech as,
Yeah, I guess, although I'd be interested, I don't know that there's that many people who don't have access to a computer anymore, but there's a difference for me between an alert, like heavens to Betsy, there's this problem with poisoning, you need that in your mailbox so everyone knows, versus information. So if I need that info, I know where to find it. Those are different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder,
It's an interesting discussion.
That could certainly go in as a little bit of a note, that, we discuss the idea of, either social media or something like that to get the message out. Because it's an expensive way to go.
Mhm.
I think
Of
we
course.
have talked about their website in the past,
Yeah.
looking for further information on their website, so I will beef that up.
because their websites, there's a lot there, but it could use some, it's just a comment. And I'm not talking necessarily social media, I'm just talking about,
Mhm.
The website.
The website, yeah.
pure and simple,
Do you remember how much it is to do a mail drop, an island-wide mail drop?
No, but I.
Bloody expensive.
it's,
It's about
I don't think it's that expensive.
Really?
$300, I can't remember. Or is it 180? It's a few years
I didn't think it was too expensive to do an island-wide mail drop.
Well, they've got
They've claimed
distribution written here as 300.
Which is probably fair.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably pretty spot on.
Mhm.
But that's something that maybe we could, in terms of cause, talk about perhaps they are interested in using funds in the future to look at updating.
That's all I was suggesting,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly right, just a little
Yeah.
addendum on
Yeah.
that. So then next year, when they come back at us, then you can say, well, how are you doing on that? Maybe.
Okay.
Does anyone, I suggested about the funds coming back to us if they don't use it.
Yes.
Is that, you're comfortable with that?
Mhm.
So if we could,
I think that's part of our policy.
yeah, generally do it.
So, in case they don't do the educational mail out,
Mhm.
but would you be happy if they spent the funds on upgrading their website?
No.
Okay.
No, the reason for that is that we're taking our opinion and
Yes.
applying it to
Yes,
them.
okay.
So I think that that's, they have to come to us.
Mhm.
We know that they feed the cats,
Mhm.
and that's all part of their, so, sorry, that's, anyone else?
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They did say we applied the balance of funds for pet supplies and boarding the feral cats. Okay, how are we doing?
We're doing really swell.
We are.
Did we get a number on that one?
Well, they were asking for
19 change.
1950.
Can we put the full amount in?
Yeah.
So,
I think so.
okay, so where are we?
In the balance of 97.
9,800 left over.
Yeah.
Any, we've got the numbers there. Any final comments on what we're recommending?
I'm so good at opening kettles of fish.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering if we need to make a comment about funding, funding volunteers, what used to be volunteer work. I'm just worried that we are, what am I saying?
Yeah, this is in reference more to Birch.
To
than anything,
Birch.
yeah.
Do we need to say anything or not?
So what do you?
I guess I'm wondering, what message are we sending with it? And do we need to send a message with it? We're recognizing that, we're recognizing that some of the costs of this committee, are being covered beyond the normal volunteer approach. And I don't know, I'm wondering how this grant will be read, and do we want to be articulating, as opposed to what I'm doing, which is not articulating. Do we want to get out ahead and explain ourselves, or do we just we just do it
I
and then?
kind of wondered whether we as a group, if we meet, kind of for our little feedback session, whether it's something we actually want to talk about, moving forward in the future. Like, what is our policy? What do we feel around paying for volunteers? Like, we've had a few different opinions and there's a few different sides to it. So maybe we just need to clarify it within ourselves.
Within our policy, we talk about, we have to meet the objectives of the OCP, section 8 and 9. So if you look at objective 158, where it says to promote volunteerism and encourage residents to take an active role in caring for and enriching the community.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's also objective 153, which is to provide public services and facilities that meet the needs of the community.
So we're weighing those two always. So maybe maybe where you're looking at staff costs, or there needs to be an explanation of why volunteering wasn't an option. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's us. If we take a look at the Birch budget. Where it is.
Number 2.
I've got a,
Right below number 3.
yeah, You know, I think you're paying for a certain amount of staff here, and it does have I think it does reflect on what volunteers have done in the past in terms, and I'm especially focusing on the minutes, which is something that I'm sure we all have done. And, so I don't know, is this contributing to us not getting a lot of applications because we don't have the fact that we're spending so much money? Is that because there is volunteer burnout, and if we were to start to provide funding for people to write grant applications and to run meetings, would that improve it, or is it just that there isn't a need? I don't know, Donna, you, in terms of knick-knack, nook,
Same thing.
Yeah.
We've got excess this year.
Some of the community grants that we have looked at and awarded that are the larger amounts are paying wages.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I'd be very interested in applications that articulate, here's how far we think we can go, relying on volunteers, but there's this critical person or critical people who keep it going, or are providing particular expertise, and, you know, this is how we've balanced it. But that would be something I'd be interested in.
You know, when I was talking to Colleen quite a while ago, over from Caring Circle, and when they apply for grants, there's a lot of grants they can't apply for if it's for her salary.
Absolutely.
And
How long
anybody-
did that take?
Yeah, and she said it's been really tough trying to find money for her salary. Yeah.
So often it's their standalone projects.
Yes, yeah.
That they don't want the operation because organizations don't want the responsibility of maintaining. And we see that ourselves in the fact that we've hived off the archives and the Arts Council because we got the same amount, because that's operational funding.
I think with the Birch application, maybe because this application is just for one specific project within what the actual whole organization
Yes.
is doing. But we haven't got a real grasp of how much volunteer time has gone into the actual
Exactly.
organization, that it seems
Yeah.
like we're
We
being.
know it anecdotally,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't, actually, I don't. I know nothing about Birch.
Yeah.
That-
They've been working very hard.
Well, it's funny because it's an organization that's working in parallel, obviously, with the municipality, doing a huge community service,
Yes,
which is privately funded. And I'm just thinking, if we, as a municipality, had the same organization going, we'd be funding all this. And it would be an incredible amount of money we're spending, you know, for staff and Shale. But just people, facilitators, you know.
Shale's always worth it.
And it would be extraordinarily expensive.
Yes, it
And this is what they're doing, and I believe if they do it properly, they're gonna be doing it at a very high level.
Sure. I just got, mill drop is $257 for residents only, and $341 for residents and commercial.
Thank you.
$300.
Okay. Is it something to think, sorry, 4.2.
Yeah. Are we-
Anyway, I think this is a one only. That's the only way I see that.
A one only.
The Birch.
One only,
With
or
where
possibly
where
two,
we're funding
depending
this,
on.
where we're
yeah.
funding this.
Depending what happens
Yes.
with the next little while.
Yeah. And I think going a year is probably the best way.
Thank you. I feel
Okay.
better.
What's that?
I feel better.
Oh, good. Okay, so let's, if no one else has any comments or any questions, what we've got is that we've got, looking at funding Birch for a one-year project, for $1,000 based on their budget, cost for $19.50, and that would be with the proviso that it can only, if they don't do the brochure, if the funds come back to the municipality. And Light Up Bowen is a $2,000 grant. We're not putting any constraints on them, it's $2,000, and good luck. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I will call the question of, ask those of you who are in support of the allocation of $4,950 in the three aforementioned grant applications. All those in favor? Those opposed? I didn't even call for a second.
It's okay. There's a second.
Just put it in here.
Put an name.
Okay, all right, so that, if that motion can go to the,
Yes.
now, following up on that, we have slipped $9,795. And we did discuss earlier about the possibility of recommending to the council that that money go into the, spring, what was the chairman?
Well, I
want?
think we would, I'm not sure exactly what reserve fund it would go into, maybe an incomplete works reserve fund, but carry forward into the 2019
For the grants,
budget.
yes, the grants budget. Could I have a motion, could I have a motion to that effect? Anyone want to move that we recommend to council that the excess funds be carried over to the 2019 grants budget?
Sure.
Okay, Donna?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Okay, so, I was gonna say Madam Mayor, but
Yeah,
Mr.
you
Mayor, you've heard the will of this committee.
Absolutely.
Make it so.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. So we've got, item 4.2 was reviewing our grant
So-
cycle.
The reviewing of the grant cycle. So in discussion with Raj, our CFO, he was querying me on why we have these several cycles and why do we do a spring grant cycle, and then we have our new multi-year core funding, which is in the summer, and then we have another one in the fall. And he said, why don't we just streamline it? Why don't we just do one grant cycle in, maybe April? And I like the idea personally. Streamlining staff time, and I think that if we provided organizations with enough information and communicated it, they would know that they would be budgeting for it. It still would fall within the calendar year. So like with the multi-year core funding, which happens in July, that is for the next year. But for the ones that would come to the community grants and to this committee, it would still be for the calendar year.
Would the amount go up? I only
The
say
actual
that.
budgeted
Well,
amount.
for example, if cause applies in the spring and then again in the fall for $2,000 each cycle,
For the
I'm just
grants and
wondering, would the
Well, it's the
general,
same pot of money, so
Yeah.
their grant application would need to be for, in that example, for $4,000 to
Instead of
cover
two, yeah.
the full year.
yes.
Yeah.
So then instead of it being a $2,000 limit, our limit would go
Well,
up
again,
as well?
within our policy, we don't
We don't,
actually state an
Yeah,
amount.
okay.
Does that it's been so long, so does that create a bit of a granting season, which I don't think is a bad thing, with the Community Foundation and other organizations? When's NCTEC? Spring?
No, we do the same as the foundation, and it's February. It's about February 15th.
We
They
talked
have
at one
to
point
have-
about bringing it all together, right? Didn't
Well,
we?
yeah, we do. I mean, we still meet with them when we do it, so we have the same deadline, which is February 15th, and it all goes through the foundation.
Which was great, and then if we could, anyway, maybe it doesn't need to be the same time.
But, and the other thing with that, I was gonna say, we went with one time a year, and then the Nook, the same as the foundation.
Yeah.
This past year, because we didn't use all our money in the spring, we decided, okay, whatever that was left, we would put it in the fall, so we just did another
We did
round
another
for
round.
ourselves. But, looking at it, I don't think I'd do that again, because we got a lot less people in the fall applying, and, we still end up with an excess. I put it all, what we've done is our forms are now, and the foundation, our forms are now online,
Yeah.
so they can start now for their applications, rather than in January, which is
Right.
where it used to be.
They don't have
So
to
they
do
just have
the
a
actual-
longer time to
Yeah.
apply, but there is a deadline, one
But,
deadline.
so for the average grant, if somebody's looking to fund a project, I'm just thinking it through, so they would apply to the foundation and/or the Nick Nook by January,
By February 15th.
February 15th, and they would, when would it be due for the muni?
Well, that's for discussion.
We usually
We have played with dates. We've had the end of January, we've had the end of February for the spring cycle. The difficulty is that our budget is usually not adopted until usually like the end of March, April. So really, it doesn't even make sense to be looking at the grant applications
Until budget.
until after
Yeah.
March 31st, in my opinion. It's also staff-wise, it's really busy at the year end. January, February, we're working on audit and budget, and then we move into the tax season. So April's kind of the best time for us to be able to dedicate staff resources to amalgamating all the grants that come in. It's usually the spring is the busiest.
The thing about that is that by then, people will know if they haven't
That's what I'm
applied to the
thinking.
foundation,
Then they
Yeah.
they
know.
still have another chance to apply
Yes,
somewhere
yes.
else.
Because we used to have little quiet calls back and forth about, just trying to
Yeah.
cover
Yeah,
each
yeah.
other, and I'd love to avoid that. So if you know that you didn't, then, yeah.
Because I think Smooth Stones, the deadline is December 31st.
Is
It is for
Okay.
application.
Applications and
When do
and
people
then
know,
they
Derek?
disperse the funds, I think. Three or
Well,
four
When you get
months.
a, when you get a rent,
Yeah,
usually later than sooner.
So Gary,
Um,
you were,
Well, just a quick comment, and I wonder why we split it in the first place. And I think the reason we split it because it was, grants and aids were project oriented. And I think that's maybe too long a time, and maybe that's why we did it. And, whether that's valid anymore or not, I don't know. But, for a $2,000 project, you could think about it, say, you don't want to wait a year to get the
Right.
money because, well, I guess you could spend the money and try to recover.
But our policy doesn't say that anymore. We don't have a grants and aid policy anymore. We have a
True.
community grants policy.
I like
But we don't give out the big grants in the fall.
Why not?
Oh, really? I thought it was just grants and aid. I thought
No, we don't have.
But that's what,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, is that's what we have done traditionally, but our policy doesn't say that we have to do it that way.
Oh,
It's all just custom.
oh,
Freedom, Jim.
I guess that's
Yeah.
what I'm just, that's part of the discussion Raj and I were having, is why do we do it this way? If
But-
our policy doesn't state
It doesn't
that,
say we
then
don't have to.
why?
but I just wonder what the reason was, and we started this thing up, we should know what the
We
reason.
should, shouldn't we?
But it was also in council before that, so I mean,
Well, I think part of it is, and I think we see it with Light Up Bowen and possibly Birch, with the exception of Cause, all of these applications where they're probably meeting over the course of the summer and say, oh, well, we could try and get some funding.
Or first
So-
thing in September or whatever.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and so that I wonder if we were to do it just once a year, I'm certainly cognizant of staff time and the pressure that it puts on, but it does, I rather like the idea that someone has a good idea and maybe they can get a bit of funding to run with it. I don't know whether that's necessarily a valid point or not, but whether we should be encouraging long-range planning. But, I think, is Light Up Bowen, for example, they've just finished their Christmas, are they going to be ready to put an application in March for,
But they're a good example, I think, because they were, they had a good idea, they wanted to act on it quickly. We were able to accommodate it, but what we're really saying is, if you just take that one more step and do a big proper application in the spring, we could really maybe
Yeah.
help. And so
Yeah, because.
that's an argument for the big
Yeah.
once a year.
Definitely, and with using them as an example, like, we're trying to shove it through council so we can give them the money and time to to purchase what they need. Instead, if they applied in the spring, they'd have
I
months.
think we'd also, you know, if we did move to just one grant cycle, we would just need to be communicating that.
Yes.
We would really need to
Yes.
be making sure that the community knew that was happening.
I mean, and from a grant writer's perspective, it's nice to
Mhm.
just do it
So-
once a
And
year.
it wouldn't preclude anybody like spending the $2,000 or whatever and then applying for the grant afterwards.
No,
So we-
Does our policy say that we don't fund?
Yeah, we don't.
Oh,
fund
that's
it,
right.
no, you have to,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't fund anything post.
Done.
Post-event, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But now, it would make sense then, if we were to do this, to set the date of deadline for applications mid-April, is it, or March 31st?
That was the date, mid-April was my suggestion. I think Rod was keener to push it even later, but not to interfere with tax season. I thought I would ask you guys.
as long as they're applying before the summer break,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and there's
So,
also.
the end of April.
I think the idea of having it after the foundation nook, because we're
Yeah.
such a small community,
Such,
we should
that
be
would be
working.
good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mind you, they don't find out of the results till probably beginning of April.
Is it?
Yeah, the time it goes through the whole process, especially with the foundation, they have several meetings. It's closer, the money is given out at their AGM and that's in April,
Mhm.
so somewhere before that, they hear.
But with applicants, we could say, we see you've got a grant from,
Yeah,
how, does that change anything in your application to us? And maybe it doesn't, or,
Yeah.
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 So what do we want to do? Do we want to make recommendations to, do we have to make
So you
recommendations to
don't
council?
need to
or-
read it to council, but if you want to show unanimity, it's nice to have just an internal resolution for the group and for the record, if that's how you feel. It's a very clear paper trail.
So is everyone comfortable with trying? And here again, this committee, those of us who have been along for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we always set the date, you know, when we've been running late, we've just extended the deadline. We haven't had to go to council to ask for an extension of the deadline. And I don't think our policy.
No, it
Doesn't
doesn't
exist.
state the timing,
It
yeah.
It doesn't say deadlines, right?
But if you're,
It'd be fun to just set, not fun, could be helpful to set a date that people in the community can remember.
Yeah.
You know, is it Victoria Day? That's when
Is it
things.
April 30th tax due date?
Yeah, or Victoria Day is the, you know, like that's our marker, and so you know that's kind of where you've got, before things get crazy and this, and the season's over, yeah.
So what
Or
would
to-
we would look at receiving applications March 31st, is that?
I was thinking either April 15th or April 30th.
Okay.
so open to receiving,
So the deadline be.
deadline, so.
Yeah.
So April
30.
30th, now, what was our deadline for applications this time?
In the spring?
It-
Was it
I think we had extended it to April 3rd.
No, I'm just thinking here, if we would want to have, what do we have, April 30th meeting, we would want to definitely have the approvals
Oh, I see.
done before summer starts.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So by the
Yeah.
May 24th weekend or something like that, if we
Yeah.
had 3 weeks.
Funds.
So if we said applications come in April 30th, does that give staff enough time to go through them and get them out to the committee and say have a meeting by May
May
30th?
I think so. Doesn't it say within our policy what the process is for
Is it within
the
the time?
timeline, I think? I need to give everyone a week after the applications to review and edit.
Mhm.
Um,
Application process.
Did you find that through the process? Was it in there?
Yeah. It's on page 2 of the policy. But that's the application process, there's no time.
I thought there was another page actually that,
I think you gave it to us.
no, I did not have, sorry about that. I don't know what happened to it.
I'm online looking at it.
Online.
Oh, yeah, our little thingy. Right?
Is
here it says the committee will meet 1 month following the application
Oh,
deadline.
where did you find that?
Oh, there it is.
The last page in that,
The policy.
yeah.
Terms of reference?
Process for decision making. It's the very last page in that,
Second to last page in tab 1.
Yeah, second one.
oh, my last page, okay.
Even good terms of reference.
I unfortunately
Oh,
didn't get
there.
that.
I didn't get that either, Jane.
Mm.
I think it was me and binders together. So I must have missed yours and mine somehow. But I have it in Yvonne's binder.
Oh, good. So it is, okay, here we are.
Yeah, it is there.
3,
Do you have it? Yeah, there.
Okay.
So we'll meet 1 month. So if April 30th is the deadline, then we would
May
meet by
30th.
May 30th. So is that too late? Should we have April 15th and then meet by May 15th?
April 15th sounds good.
I just worry that people start to, June becomes a crazy.
Yeah,
month.
that's
Yeah.
what, yeah, the sooner the better, I think, if it, as long as it's,
Committees, and I think
as long as it's
groups,
comfortable.
Mhm.
groups need to,
Mhm.
so
I
that.
think we either have it as an April 15th deadline, or we have it an October deadline.
Mhm.
Oh. Listen to you. That's a horse of a different color, isn't it?
What that does is take into account the people over the summer who made other ideas for projects, and now they have a place to apply if they didn't apply earlier to the other ones.
How does that affect most, I guess most of our applicants, because they're smaller, their fiscal year,
Calendar based?
pardon me?
Calendar based?
Yeah, well, calendar based, or maybe they don't even have a fiscal year, so it's, I'm just trying to think, would an October deadline have much of an impact on?
Mm.
That would mean things like the Arts Council, all the big ones too, wouldn't apply till October.
Well,
They're
no, they're
part of the
corresponding.
cycle.
They're separate.
They're
Oh, that's
separate,
right,
yeah.
that's right.
They're on a 4-year cycle now. They're separate.
4 year, okay.
But the other spring applicants that we've had include Family Place,
Caring Circle.
Caring Circle, Own Heritage.
Yeah.
Can
And
we ask
it
them?
would be a bit of a stretch for them to go
Yeah.
from now all the way till next fall.
October.
It's sort of like, I don't know, maybe I like doing it in the spring. It's,
I do too. Spring grants, fertile.
It's
Right.
Yeah. Fairly fertile.
I actually think I like it being in the fall, but I do understand the transition would be challenging.
Fall's just a little quieter.
Well, in terms,
Lots
actually,
going
it's-
on in the spring.
but, and that is something that we do have to be aware of, is the impact on staff.
Yeah.
And whether you can, if this works better, is there a downside for us to move things to the fall?
There'd be this one-time adjustment for some organizations. That's all. It could,
Which
Yeah, I
could
guess.
be a bit of a stretch for some, maybe we could warn them of a year ahead.
Mhm.
Those, well, the ones that would be
Yeah, not do
impacted.
it, we will not do it for next year, but the following year.
That's a good idea.
That's a suggestion for
Yeah.
2019. We
Yeah.
have it as April 15th, but 2020, it's.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
It's gonna be
Because
the
it's
fall.
not just a changing deadline, it is in the way they use their money. If
Absolutely.
they know now, they're not going to get it until
Mhm.
November
Yeah.
or October.
The
Oh.
year end.
And it might make their request a little
Yeah.
different.
This is, I don't know whether this is completely off the wall, but I'm looking at, you've got Family Place and Caring Circle would be the ones that probably would have the most impact.
Yeah.
And we could take a look at some of our surplus and boost up their,
Yeah,
their ask to cover
that
the
transition.
transition, business transition, if we were to, but that's the committee next time. So do a spring and then say it'll be another, it's actually a year and a half.
look at the happiness on that woman's face.
I'm okay with either. Spring is definitely a busier time. We have a lot happening in the spring.
What about the effect on the other granting bodies? So is it going to be helpful to have 2 seasons now? You get a kick at the can in the early spring, and then you get another kick in the fall? Or is it,
Well, it doesn't,
From a
I don't
grant.
think it affects us at all.
no, but does it help people looking for grants? There are still 2 cycles in effect.
Right, yeah.
And do you get the same, no, I'm not familiar with the applicants for the NOC and for the foundation, but do you get similar applications from?
You know, not
Ish.
really, because, you know, we have those 2 categories. You know, there, in this case, there is one that's applied here, that's applied to us. But no, no.
Generally different.
And the foundation has to have charitable status.
Well, so does the Nook,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it does make a difference when you have to.
They have, or they, so they,
The organizations
people will try to
have-
partner with a charitable organization.
Right.
It's just an extra hurdle.
Right, you can only grant to charitable organizations.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, good discussion. What do we want to do? Should we recommend that that next year we have a spring granting period, which would be April 15th or April 30th for the deadline, and then advise applicants that the following year we would be transitioning to October 15th or September 30th or whatever? What do you think?
I would suggest that we're doing that, maybe do April 30th then. You would prefer the 30th, wouldn't you, then, to work?
I'm okay with either, just thinking of if we're going to meet within a month, then that's putting it to May 30th, and I don't know if people are feeling like that's too late for,
I'm okay with it.
so April 30th.
Well, I certainly don't care if people are getting the money to care.
April 30th is good, people already know that,
Yeah.
maybe only me, maybe that it's CRA tax due date, it's like it's a due date.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, like September 30 gives you that, yeah.
What I find with September 30th deadline is it's a little bit early for fall groups that are just getting it back,
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
That's true.
So October 30?
or 15th,
15th or 30th,
it's an extra couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just clarify? So it's 2019 is April 30th, 2019 October 30th, and then 2020 October 30th.
No.
2020, you lose the fall
We're
grant.
losing the fall one. Okay,
Next year.
thank you.
No, 2019, we're losing the fall.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry,
So-
2019.
So we're going single from now on. Okay.
Okay, do we need a motion on that?
I think it'd be good. Yeah.
Okay, so could you just read what we
No.
Okay, so what we
Vote
recommend.
on the information and I'll put together the wording.
So basically what we're doing is that we're recommending that this committee next year, that the deadline for applications for the community grants be April 30th in 2019 and October 15th in 2020.
And
And
there
moving
will-
forward and onward.
Yeah, and then there will only be one granting season a year.
One grant license a year,
Yes.
exactly. And that applicants will be advised of this in the application form next spring in 2019.
I
Yeah.
think we can start communicating that as soon as, as soon as we have that confirmed, if that's what we're doing.
Okay, so everyone understand what we're
It'll be
voting on?
interesting to see what the feedback is from that, because there might be some things that we haven't considered, but,
There may be, and Raj isn't here today, which I was hoping he would be able to join us, because
Yeah.
I think he had some thoughts about it, so
yeah.
he may have some more words.
Well, and maybe you can
Michelle
talk to him and get that to the committee, and if need be, we can always meet again.
Mhm.
All right, so could I have a,
Move that.
thank you.
Seconded.
And seconder? All those in favor? Perfect. Okay, so that, we have a couple of information items. The council meeting approved our grant recommendations, and there is quite a extensive report on the community lands.
Council has asked that all committee members take a look at the Pinky Lands report if you're interested.
You, it looks very nice. And we will, our next meeting will be determined when we get the next package.
Yes.
Unless Raj has some really, some questions about what we're recommending.
Okay. Good.
But thank you all very much, and this being